All right, hello everybody. Welcome to State of the SEL. Brand new week of our live recap show, and we're going over all the playoffs that have happened so far this Monday. So it's gonna be a fun night. As always, I'm Mr. Bepic, and tonight TJ is joining me from the abyss. He's got nothing behind him. It's just pure TJ on your screens tonight. TJ, how you doing?
Yeah, you can't even see the background or whatever. I was gonna try and shine my flashlight. No, so I'm live from the Esports UGA lab. Apologies to stream for things being late. That is my bad. But we made it. We're here. So yeah, I mean, I'm in the Esports lab. Obviously you can't see it because lighting was an issue. But hey, we're out here.
Everyone's calling us out for being 2 minutes late. Yeah, it's our show.
Bad.
We can
That's
do
my
whatever
bad.
we want. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in though. We got a lot of stuff to talk over. Like TJ, we got to see a couple of playoff series unfold on stream last week, and we're gonna be going over everything here so far. But like we don't have the. Let me put the bracket up real fast on screen because I want to get like your first thoughts on the playoffs so far, the bracket so far, because it's kind of been insane. The playoffs have had a lot of narratives unfolding already. So there we go. That's what it looks like. And there's a black line running through. You're gonna have to forgive me for that. It's my production. It looks weird. But TJ, first thing that jumps out at you, and we'll start with that series and talk about everything that's been going on so far.
Yeah, so I am currently looking through your screen share, so let me decipher for a second. All right, so obviously Cumberland reverse sweeps Florida State. Let's just kick it off. That was incredible. I'm extremely happy for Magic and them. And look, maybe I'm crazy here. I've been kind of riding a little bit of a hate train on our top teams. I worry heavily about King, about UTK, about FSU, because you play so well, and then the league changes, and each one of these teams has a rough loss coming into playoffs. And so I was a little worried about their consistency. Florida State, obviously a 5-game loss to Cumberland. That's respectable. That's completely fine. And we're not even going to touch on the 3-0 East Carolina over King. But one thing that I do want everybody to realize is Georgia State beats UNCC. That is another massive thing, and that's a whole other topic that I'm sure we'll touch on the show. Oh my lord, I mean, just looking down the bracket, South Carolina and FAU still hasn't finished. That is like my series to watch for all of this. I mean, lower bracket, I really respect Montevallo because they grinded so hard, and they went to game 5 and took a game off of Florida State, and they just couldn't get it done. So they look really good. I'm excited for them over the summer and next year, but unfortunately they just couldn't get it done. So yeah, I mean, in terms of shocking matchups, I think that's it. But we can obviously dive in deeper to some of those.
Oh, we're definitely gonna dive in deeper. Like, I want to go through each series individually first, just like as brief as we want to, or as long as we want. So I'm gonna start with kind of like an obvious series, because this was how we kicked off the draft show last week with Bruton Parker picking UAH Blue as their round 1 matchup, and they 3-0'd them. Like that, there was their strategy to pick a team that they could pick that was highest up on the LAN points, the season points leaderboard, and UAH with their top 8 finish in the fall was that team for them to pick. And so they 3-0'd them, TJ, and they send UAH down to await the loser of FAU and South Carolina. So I mean, is this 3-0 shocking to you? Like, Bruton Parker's play is kind of paying off here.
I will say that obviously this isn't the Bruton Parker that everybody's extremely familiar with. It is not their main starting lineup. It is obviously a mix. So that is Milk, Sino, and Antics. Antics, an extremely good player, arguably one of the best or the best in the league, giving Hammy a run for his money in my opinion. And then you look at Milk, who is technically the CRL sub, but he has looked really impressive. And funny enough, similar to FAU, he's like the Mitra of this team. He is extremely annoying to play against. All love to him, don't get me wrong. But as a guy who's played against him, he is a pain to play against. But he's a really good pressure player. So he does a great job. And then Sino has experience playing in very high-level series. He's had experience going all the way back to high school. I believe. So he is also extremely talented. I'm not too worried about this Bruton Parker roster, and I have them winning the whole thing this split.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I saw your predictions. I know, and you're Georgia biased as well, so it makes sense. It makes sense that you're picking Bruton Parker to win it all. But like, this is a smart bet right now. They have yet to lose a series. They went 10-0 across group play and through the Elite Eight as well. Like, not only did they win their group, going 7-0, but then they went in against the other #1 finishers in groups, and then they beat them as well. I think they dropped 3 games total in the Elite Eight. They 3-1'd every single first place finisher. Now making an 11-0 over UAH Blue. Like Bruton Parker. I mean, I know you have them going to grands through uppers, right, TJ?
Yes, and then I have them losing the UTK in the grand finals, but then I have them winning the bracket reset.
Okay, so then I want your prediction. Does FAU or South Carolina, whoever ends up winning that series, do they even get a game off of Bruton Parker?
Oh Lord, do they get a game? I don't think so. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of got to watch a little bit of that FAU series because I'm good friends with the Bruton Parker guys. I feel like it for Bruton Parker, like almost every team in this league had roster issues around that time point.
Yeah.
So I feel like now they actually have a solid 3 that has been consistently playing. Maybe 1 game, but I don't see it going to 5.
All right, so maybe a game is what TJ's calling out for that one. I can't wait. Whoever they do end up playing, I can't wait for that series. It's gonna be a fun one. And then like with the UTK potential matchup against Bruton Parker on the horizon as well. That is what I'm really excited about. But talking more about your Georgia boys, Buds versus UNCC. This one was a rematch of a group stage matchup that Buds won 3-1 initially, and now you got UNCC 3-1ing them, and on loss it says every single UNCC win was a 1-0. TJ, did you get to watch this one at all?
I got to hear about it right after because that was let's see, that series was played. Was that Sunday night or when was that?
3 nights.
Or was it Friday night?
Friday night. It was Friday night.
Yeah, I was unfortunately not able to make it, but I did talk with the boys after. So first, those games were not all 1-0, I believe.
Okay,
I believe a few of them. Yeah, I believe a few of them might have been more, but I do think that those games were still within 1 or 2 goals, no matter what the score was. I know that first one is right, and that's where my issue with this series comes from. Is you go 6-2 to kind of get things moving, and then you just kind of lose it. And this has been the issue with Georgia State going all the way back to the fall. I love my boys, don't get me wrong, but the roster issues continue, and they drop random series because of it. And, I mean, UNCC has upset now both the top teams in their group.
Yep.
So don't get me wrong, credit to UNCC. But also, I know that UNCC hates playing this Georgia State roster. They have said that to them at LAN, at Boost on the Beach. So they're friends, and I'm glad that there's no bad blood between these teams, but Georgia State's got a lot to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, that's figured out quick. They're playing Arkansas, and this is a little preview about the series we're going to be talking about coming up. They're playing Arkansas tomorrow night, and so they got to figure it out because they're still on the outside looking in of our top 8 land spots. Like, they had a decent run in fall to where they're kind of sitting in kind of 9th place around that area of land points, and so being in lowers, they still have to make a run. And so losing to UNCC, it seemed that they had already beaten that one hurts just a little bit. And like you said, the roster situation is not yet set in stone. I don't think Dylan was able to, during the draft show, give us what the roster was going to be set as. I think more than likely it's going to be Dylan, Shady, and Monk as the starting 3. I mean, TJ, do you have all the insight on that?
Oh, I'm gonna be dead honest. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Okay.
But what I can say is that Georgia State is now a steady roster of 3 for the rest of the year. I can say that much. I just don't think I can say who it is.
Well, I mean, in that case, tomorrow night we'll probably get an answer to that when they do play Arkansas, who we have to talk about as well. Their series on the upper side was a series that, as the screen refreshes here, I got to watch a little bit of. And quickly turned it off, seeing the scores on the left side. That game 1, 4-0 UTK. Game 2, 4-0 UTK. and Game 3 was a 6-0 to UTK. Arkansas looked good coming out of the last chance qualifier, but UTK looks really good coming out of the Elite 8 Group 2. I think Arkansas just ran up against a brick wall here, as UTK is playing so well right now, and they're taking care of business on the upper side of the bracket. It looks like it's going to be a Bruton Parker UTK semis matchup.
Yeah, I mean, much love to Arkansas as a fellow SEC school, but I'm going to be honest, our group was kind of a little fraudulent.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like that we got. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I've been saying that all season, so thank you for saying it.
I don't think that we got a lot of really good comp, and even the teams that we did get, Bruton Parker was different rosters for the first few weeks, and FAU plays very specifically. So I feel really bad, for us and Arkansas, who tried to survive out of our group, and then now you go against teams who are just simply nothing like you've played all year.
Yep.
And then you get brick-walled by the Chris show. I mean, Tennessee looks really good. I'm really happy that they've been kind of on a tear this split. I arguably think they look better this split than last. I mean, especially with how well they've done. They've gone to, I believe, 3. They will be going to 3 lands. They'll be going to Volan, obviously. And they won the Queen City Clash,
Yep.
which we'll talk more about that later, too. So, yeah, no, they're on a heater. I expect them. I mean, I went back and forth between that upper bracket semifinal. I do feel like they could upset Bruton Parker simply because Bruton Parker has yet to play a team like them. Nobody has.
Right. I think, and Joe's feeling confident as well. He said it on the draw show, because I was at the draw show, or State of the SEL, where I asked him if Bruton Parker is really as scary as their record suggests, and pretty much the consensus from him was that no, they're not as scary. And Wade agreed that night as well. I don't know what Snipes' opinion was on that show, but I think Joe is confident about Bruton Parker, so it should be a close series. And I think the result of that, if it doesn't end up happening, like, someone could easily throw. UTK could easily throw. But right now we're looking like it's going to be an upper semis matchup between them. But I think UTK is confident. When they're playing confident, it can be a scary thing. But moving on, TJ, to a series we kind of gave our live reactions to last week. As we got word in, but King getting 3-0'd by ECU. And this is a King, for those that don't know, that had to play with Echo, as Cynical was unavailable and will be unavailable for the rest of the semester, which we'll talk about that situation a little more later in the show. But on the upper side, they got 3-0'd, TJ, and two of the 3 games were 1-goal games. But ECU 3-0ing King throws a massive wrench into a lot of teams' LAN hopes.
Yeah, I mean, King, it opens the doors, but unfortunately, I don't think it opens the doors for anybody who's not already in the top 4 or 5. Yes, it's a massive loss, and yes, the points will be very odd depending on how they finish. I'm more worried about how King is going to look after this split.
Yeah.
Because yes, we do already have an idea of who's going to play at LAN. Turbo is eligible to come back, which is a saving grace for King right now. But I mean, it's very similar to Georgia State. I mean, you lose a key part of your roster, and I just worry about how they're going to look. So I don't read too far into this ECU loss. Yes, I do think that this should never be a 3-0 in any circumstances, even with Echo. But this was also fresh off that George Mason reverse sweep in Colleague Madness. And so I understand where they're coming from. Teams till it happens. I think this is a learning point for all of King as a team. And yes, it hurts, but I think they're going to come back stronger. And looking at how they're seeded, they're probably still going to place top 8.
Yeah. I think with the way that points are laid out right now, the 40 points that King has will get them to LAN, unless, and I posted about it in the RL chat earlier today. I was able to put together a bracket that didn't knock out any of the teams with 40 points, but it made like a 5-way tie. So technically there is a world in which teams with 40 points in the LAN standings have to play a tiebreaker to get to LAN. But that bracket included South Carolina Garnet going to Grands, so I don't know if we're going to get that far and be in that reality, especially with how Garnet looked against Kentucky, who that's a series we got to watch on my stream last Wednesday. as Kentucky kind of had their way with Garnet, even with the awkward series, TJ, that Garnet forces you to play. This series went to game 5 in groups, but this time Kentucky was able to take care of Garnet in 4 games, and they kind of put an emphatic stamp on the final 2 games of that series. As, I mean, Chipmunk Man was kind of popping off a little bit. Mad respect to him whipping out the McLaren and then making plays against Garnet.
Yeah, I was not familiar with the McLaren game. I definitely have never seen that recommended by anyone. So, yeah, no, big shout out to Chipmunk. As a freshman, he's doing incredible things. I think Kentucky finally has their foot on the gas for once this split. I think the way that their season was scheduled, they kind of got to cruise, in my opinion, up until the last few weeks. And so for them, it's kind of been back-to-back, like, warm-up weeks almost. So I think they just got hot at the right time. USC Garnet, funny enough, I think both USC teams are finally starting to be figured out by the league. And because of that, I'm not too surprised by the 3-1. Obviously, USC Garnet having an incredible season. And even if you lose the King, it's still an incredible season for them. But yeah, I can't say I was surprised. And Kentucky finally started peaking. And they look really strong. And I would love to see them beat Cumberland in a series that I believe would almost 100% secure them land, if they haven't already, with King's loss and Georgia State's loss and UAH's loss and Florida State's loss and a potential USC loss. So for Kentucky, almost everything has gone right for you. You just got to finish the season out.
Yeah, definitely. Top 6 getting secured, like, in most realistic worlds, that secures land. But it doesn't officially secure land yet. After round 2 of lowers finishes up, that should tell us a good bit of the teams securing land, because top 6 should be close to being secured as well. We should have a lot of answers after Wednesday, if most teams play their series on Wednesday. But to talk about Garnet as well, they are playing King, kicking off in about 10 minutes. I think the series is unofficially starting at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. I don't know if that's being streamed or not. I'm going to be looking to see if that Gamecocks esports channel goes live in maybe 10-15 minutes, because Wade was telling me they're playing around 8-ish Eastern time. And I asked him what 8-ish meant, and apparently the King guys are involved with something on campus. And it wraps up around 8, so they have to walk to their computer lab to get set up for that. So we may be able to preview that series in real time on State of the SEL to see what ends up happening, because that's actually a big series, because if King wins, that's them knocking out a LAN spot contender. So that helps the teams that are in the top 8 currently. But if Garnet wins, then again that plunges us into a little bit more chaos, because Garnet will get the loser of UNCC and UTK, and more than likely, if that is UNCC, if UTK gets their revenge, then that'll be 2 teams outside of the top 8 playing for a top 8 spot, to kind of keep building points for a LAN run. So that should be a big series. I'm really hoping it gets streamed. But we'll move on to the next series here, TJ, with Florida State Garnet and Montevallo. Montevallo took a game, and you said you were impressed. They took a game off of FSU, grinding the game and looking pretty good at the end of the season, but falling short here.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for Montevallo. Obviously, they knocked us out, and it is all love. I mean, we have had issues all year, and they have not, and they've been grinding, and they deserve to be in playoffs. I do hope. I mean, I kind of hate that the way their season ended was you play FSU Garnet, and then you go immediately down into Alabama, a team that for once this year is actually seemingly on a roll. Because they've had all sorts of issues this year. I know you know all about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they really gave it their all. I'm very impressed. And for FSU, dropping a game here isn't a major concern, especially given that it was a 1-goal game. So it speaks more to the impressiveness of Montevallo than if I'm worried about FSU.
Yeah, FSU kind of always plays down to teams that they should be beating. And I'm going to put the Montevallo loss to Alabama up as well, so we can take a look at that. Since we're talking about Montevallo, they lose to Florida State. They drop down to play Alabama, who lost to Cumberland. And a Game 5 loss is that one hurts. And Lego posted about it in our old chat as well. with NK2's PC kind of crashing on him in the middle of Game 5, and you have to play Game 5 out as per the rules. But it's still a tough way to go out, especially kind of on the outside looking into those top 8 spots. With Alabama being another one of those teams that didn't play playoffs in fall, and then having to make a run in the spring playoffs to try and get to LAN. But it was close, and I think that's a good thing for both of these teams to have a close series against a team that can have high highs, TJ. But Alabama moves on. After getting 3-0'd by Cumberland, they could make a lower bracket run, I think, if we see the Alabama team that can actually play up to their opponents.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing this Alabama roster succeed. They're a really nice group of guys. I've been a Trizen fan for a while now. I've referred to him as Rookie of the Year plenty of times last year. He's always been impressive, and Chan's always been a great team leader. I just hope that they can piece it together for a few more clutch series, because it looks like that they're most likely going to end up playing in what my predictions would be FAU. And that's a very rough team. But if Alabama plays consistently and they get a little bit of luck like what they got on mainstream before, you know, they can make it work.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that potential matchup, it's going to be the loser of Bruton Parker and then either FAU or South Carolina. And I mean, either way, I think FAU, and Alabama's already beaten South Carolina this season. I think either FAU or USC, that's a winnable matchup for Alabama. If they actually play well and play up to their opponent, then FAU or the Gamecocks, like that, I think they can definitely work with. It's a lot better than a lot of the potential second-round matchups they could have gotten in the lower bracket.
Yeah, no matter if you're USC or FAU, that's a must-win in my opinion. For USC, it's a little more dangerous because you're obviously fighting heavy for that land spot. FAU, you don't have to go crazy this split, but you still are not in the safe zone in my opinion. So that feels like a must-win, and then you're going to get dropped. If you lose that series, you get dropped into UAH, and then if you win that series and you lose Bruton Parker, you get dropped into Alabama. So there's really not a win-win. It's going to be a tough route for those teams, no matter if they win or lose, but obviously every extra place forward helps. And a little side note, I want chaos, so I'm sorry to Be More and to Cats, but I want that UAH Blue South Carolina match desperately, because that almost will be a LAN qualifying match, depending on what happens with Florida State down there too.
Absolutely. I mean, with FSU kind of being the guard dog, if whoever comes out of the loser of FAU and South Carolina versus UAH Blue, they get FSU, who have already clinched LAN. They have clinched LAN. They will be there in Huntsville. But you get out of the frying pan, get very close to making a case of your own for LAN, playing each other, because I'm gonna throw up the LAN standings right now, and this is gonna look so scuffed. But this is what the LAN standings look like right now, with UAH Blue sitting there tied for 7th with ECU, and then South Carolina on the lower side. So if USC goes 0-2, they are out. They are done. So they have to win a series to at least be tied for a LAN spot right now. So that is must-see TV. If it's South Carolina versus UAH Blue, TJ, like that is a series that's essentially being played for LAN.
Yeah, and I hate it for ECU, but I would be willing to go ahead and say that you know, obviously we're going to expect Bruton Parker to knock a team down. But then they're still tied. So, I mean, UAH just simply needs to outperform ECU, and ECU got a whole round head start against them.
Yep.
And for ECU, it's a fairly winnable area to get into losers round 3, because they beat Georgia State last year, who was also having roster issues again last year. And if we're going to follow the same path again, there's a way that ECU makes LAN. And if UAH and USC have to play early and then you go into Florida State, it opens, I mean, crazy doors for ECU. But yes, like you mentioned, that game, extremely important. And if there's any series this year that you're going to see passion to the max, it will be a UAH versus USC losers round 1.
Right. I mean, especially with B Moore playing in his last semester for UAH, USC is always a passionate team. It would just feel weird not to have either of them on land. So it's gonna feel weird either way. But must see TV there. And so we've almost spent 30 minutes talking about the upcoming series. So I'm gonna change the overlay real fast because we got to talk about the upcoming series as well. Because I'm gonna put up the loss bracket here in a second, so we can talk about what is coming up. And we've already kind of talked about it. The FAU South Carolina matchup. That is the 8 versus the 9 seed. Should be the closest series of round 1 of uppers. It's being played tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 Eastern time. Now, TJ, we've talked about it a lot. You said you have FAU moving on, but how close do you think that series is going to be?
I unfortunately think it only goes to 4. Maybe I'm controversial, but I like FAU. I think that their play style, I mean, we saw it last year. FAU is in that top 4 and not the top 3 for a reason. In my eyes, I think their play style is kind of two-dimensional, and that's no disrespect to them because they make it work, but I have yet to see them take it to a team like UTK or potentially to Bruton Parker. Now, granted, I would love to be upset, and I would love for this bracket to burn in chaos, but yeah, I got it in 4. I think USC has been on kind of a slump this semester, but I do feel like they do get the run back over UAH Blue.
All right. Well, we'll see about that one. I hope it's streamed tomorrow. That one usually gets streamed, or South Carolina usually gets streamed on their Twitch stream. I'm hoping that I have something to pop up at work tomorrow, and be watching that. But I also have to shout out in the Twitch chat as well. Turnip saying at 8:15 Eastern, Gamecock Esports is streaming Garnet versus King. So make sure to check that out if you are able. And then also, Real Albedo, to shout him out for making that spreadsheet that I was showing a second ago with the land standings for all our predictions. That's helped me out creating scenarios, figuring out who's safe and who's not. Shout out to Real Albedo for whipping that up. But moving on to our other upcoming series, I want to talk about, while we're on the upper side of the bracket, TJ, Kentucky and Cumberland, because Kentucky's had kind of a Cinderella run, being helped out a little bit. They took care of business against Garnet, being helped out by Cynical dropping for King, and now they get a real test in Cumberland for top 3 guaranteed on the line there.
Yeah, I'm not going to act like I predicted this in winter semis. This is definitely not what I expected. But Cumberland has looked incredible this year. I mean, unfortunately, it's at the expense of dropping Aurora down. But, okay, I will say this. If I'm going purely off stats, I have Cumberland in 5. Yeah. But if I'm going off of momentum and just the script writers doing their work, I got Kentucky in 5 in overtime. I believe that if Apples is doing what he's done all year, and Chipmunk plays the way he did, and Huds, ideally Huds will unlock the way he has occasionally. The reason why I'm hesitant is because of the Queen City Clash and Huds not being able to go to that, and it was Fern instead. I worry a little bit about that. I think that would have been a really good experience for them, to where I probably would have given them the edge, but my heart wants Kentucky 3-2, but statistically, I think Cumberland takes it in 5.
Yeah, I love Kentucky and the boys, but Cumberland has their sights set on winning this entire thing. They're a team that's always kind of the outside looking in of maybe the top 4 in the SEL. They got top 6 in the fall, and making a roster move that I think has upgraded them. This is one of their best shots to make a deep run here, maybe upset the UTKs and the Bruton Parkers that most people have winning it all. And they've got they've already beat FSU, so that's one of the top 4 down. And personally, I think that Cumberland, with King having to make that roster, having to bring Echo up from the bench, I think Cumberland jumps into the top 4, taking King's spot.
Yeah, I also do want to mention that I believe this is the same Cumberland roster that played Kentucky at Bluegrass Boost Battle and won. I believe they won 4-1. I'm double checking that right now as we talk, unless that might have been Cumberland B. No, sorry, they played a Monday Night Lights, and they won 4-1 with 2 overtimes. So granted, that was a little bit ago, or Friday Night Lights. I don't know if I accidentally said Monday Night Lights. Yeah, so that was Friday Night Lights 4-1. Obviously, that's the day before it lands, so I'm not going to read too far into it. But again, this team is suffocating. They really want it, and I know how badly Magic and Skyline have been trying to grind for this. And now you get Super Smurf, who is one of the most consistent players in the league, and also just impressive as hell. I think they can handle it, but it will be close.
Yeah, 4-1. You're right. I'd completely forgotten about that matchup on like my own set of show matches before PvP, which is crazy. But Kentucky took game 1 of that series, and then Cumberland just ran through them 4-0. So I mean we'll see if Kentucky learned anything from that. But going back to the bracket, on the lower side, Buds and Arkansas. We previewed it a little bit already. But Bud should be taking care of business against Arkansas here, TJ. Yeah,
3-0. 3-0. No hate, Arkansas. I will say, with the roster of 3 that Georgia State is playing with, it is one of their least experienced combos, but mentally, this roster can take it. I'm not worried about them like having an issue midway through the series where they lose a player or something like that, like mentally. This should be 3-0 into a momentum matchup against East Carolina, where I believe they will 3-1, and then you gotta hope they can handle whoever they play.
I mean, whoever they play is going to be one of UAH Blue, Florida State, FAU, or South Carolina, which is a tough matchup no matter who actually escapes from that absolute horrifying group of death. Like that's an insane run. The fact that the bracket played out that way, that only one of those 4 teams is, or one of the 3 teams that'll be down there is going to escape in a top 8. Is crazy. And the other team that like wins the upper bracket matchup between FAU and South Carolina against Alabama is still a tough matchup. SEL Playoffs always deliver on entertainment. So keep an eye on that part of the bracket right there. And then King and Garnet, like with Echo in, TJ, do you have Garnet as the favorites in the series that's kicking off in about 12 minutes?
Whoa, hold on now. Let's hold our horses here. No, I still got King.
Okay.
I do think USC gets a game. I do think Garnet gets a game. But King, again, they took the loss. I know how much that team hurt from that. But again, this is a team with real experience at a very high level. And now that they finally had that loss, I think we're literally going to see the exact same story as last split. They're going to take that early loss, they're going to wake up, and then they're going to roll. So I believe 3-1. I think King will probably drop game 1 or 2 and then steamroll 3 and 4. But I will say, again, full respect to USC Garnet. They're a very good team. I just think that King is ready to play.
Absolutely. I hope so. They've had a week to kind of grind with Echo in the lineup, so I hope they've been able to practice a good bit after Echo's insertion. Because Wade was saying they had to play with Echo, and he hadn't touched the game in like 2 weeks. So hopefully Echo's been playing the heck out of the game. But we'll see what kind of fight Garnet puts up against King, because they're a team that's looked fairly decent getting out of the last chance qualifier as well, over the UGA boys who we all love. But Garnet's still a good team. It's going to be a good series. So I hope all of you watching right now are able to check that one out. And then this one is the one I really wanted to talk about. It's the reason why the logos are up in the top left of the screen. UNCC and UTK, TJ, being played on Monday Night Lights in about half an hour. This one determines who goes top 6, which for UNCC is important. They have to make a deep run in this bracket to make it to LAN, but it's also a revenge match for UTK against the team that beat them on the last day of groups in Game 5 after the Game 4 incident. Like, who are you taking in this?
UTK 3-0. No, we've made so many jokes about the game insert number that I'm not gonna say incident. UTK is fresh off a LAN win. They have looked so good, and I believe that they're finally here. I think this is the UTK that we know can be our quote-unquote underdogs because they're gonna play Burton Parker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I look again. I love UNCC. I feel like that Georgia State series, again, was solid, but it was a tad fraudulent, maybe a mini asterisk on that. I can't help but go 3-0 UTK. I think that there's no incident. I do think that it's probably within 1 or 2 goals, probably 2 goals. I think UTK takes care of business.
Okay, I agree with you to take care of business, but I think UNCC's good enough where they're able to get a game off of the Volunteers. Maybe it's like a slow start for UTK. UNCC is good enough to pounce on that, but mechanically, UTK is just head and shoulders above UNCC, who are really good. Like Lazy and Knight mechanically are up there with some of the better teams in the SEL. But I think as a whole, UTK is just too good offensively to let multiple games slip in that series. But we'll see. That one's happening on Monday night, so stay Monday Night Lights, so stay on the stream to catch that one at the very least, because that's gonna be a solid series. The revenge match, the important one for UNCC to really test themselves. But I also want to talk about the LAN standings, because TJ, we've been doing some scenarioing. And right now, I'm gonna put the LAN standings back on the screen so we can take a look at it, at what it looks like right now, with our top 8 being FSU, who have clinched LAN, King, UTK, and Cumberland, who have clinched at least a tiebreaker, and then FAU, Kentucky, UAH Blue, and ECU. How much do you see this top 8 shifting as the playoffs continue to develop?
Oh, God. This is so hard to predict. I mean, the SEL consistently delivers in content, and so it just makes it so hard to really piece it together. If I had to guess, I think that unfortunately we see ECU go home. I do think that final spot will come between USC and UAH. Obviously, Florida State, King, UTK, safe, in my opinion, no matter what happens. Cumberland, I also don't think it's too crazy to throw that number out there, but with Kentucky's massive run that they've had, they have a chance to move into the top 4. FAU, I don't know how they'll do in losers. I would imagine they'll have a similar run, meaning that they'll be okay. So I think that we are almost guaranteed the current top 6, plus Bruton Parker.
Yeah, I definitely think Bruton Parker makes that run. I think most people are predicting, because you get 40 points for just making it to the grand finals, and like we've been talking about, 40 points is the official magic number to at least get a tiebreaker, barring absolute chaos. But and I'll move on to the next overlay screen, talking about the actual magic number. I think 36 is where you want to be to make LAN as close to reality as possible. So Kentucky's not quite there, FAU's not quite there, but 36 points, you at least get a tiebreaker, and you stave off elimination no matter what happens, because most scenarios, I think 36 points is going to be safe. So Kentucky's got to win one more, FAU's got to win one more, and then UAH, Blue, ECU, South Carolina, they all got to do a ton of work.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's just simply going to come down to that last spot, and you're looking at the upper side of losers. I think that right there, those 2 games, might make the rest of the bracket just null. Like, I think we may have our confirmed teams the moment that we see those 2 games with UAH and whoever they play, and then Florida State. I don't know. I really, for the sake of the league, I would pray that we don't see USC Garnet upset King and then go on to make like a top 8, top 6 run somehow, because that would make things very interesting, and that could ruin like 3 or 4 teams. But like we just mentioned, I do think that the top 6 or 7 are basically confirmed.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring up that bracket I made earlier, because in order for 40 points not to be safe, Garnet would have to. All right, I'm not gonna be able to get it in the stream, but
it's
Garnet, Garnet would have to beat King, UTK, FAU, Cumberland, UAH Blue, Kentucky, and then I think they just have to make grands for the tiebreaker to happen. But like, you're upsetting a majority of the top 6 in order like that. Go check out RL chat if you want to see that bracket. Scroll up a little bit. But that would be the most insane run of all time, probably anywhere in the history of competitive Rocket League. And for that to happen, TJ, I would lose my mind.
Yeah, seeing USC Garnet in the grand finals almost makes me sick. I love those guys and everything, but like I just don't see how that's possible. And this is also the same bracket where you have Buds at GSU, Florida Atlantic, King, UTK, Florida State, US. You have all of them not making top 8, and I'm pretty sure that that's almost physically impossible now.
All right, I just got while you were talking, I got the bracket up, so I'm gonna put that on screen real fast. It's gonna cover our faces just a touch, but everyone, this is the lower bracket. That has to happen for 40 points not to be safe. With Garnet going through everybody, and UNCC has to go down as well. Who Coolio Pluto just subscribed with Prime, so Coolio, UNCC is gonna beat UTK tonight. Now that he's subbed, right, TJ, right?
Sure. Funny enough, I do think that series relies heavily on the performance of Coolio. Yeah. I do think that if he can play really well offensively, they actually stand a pretty solid chance. So yeah, best of luck, Coolio.
All right, but the sub increases odds, and that sweep, Coolio, like all the results are sweeps in there. I didn't have time. Like I'm not actually. Those aren't actual predictions. That's just what happened. It has to happen for 40 points not to be a secure standing for teams to make it to LAN. But one of those teams at 40 points is a team that's going through some roster turmoil at the moment. And I love my play on words with this. King's roster tornado. Because after a reverse sweep against them that GVSU inflicted, Cynical, he's done for the season for mental health purposes, which I respect. I respect being able to be like, yeah, my mental health is not in a right state to be competing right now. So I'm gonna take a break, and it sucks for the roster that is the case. But like to be able to make that decision, that's a mature decision from Cynical, and it leaves King in a weird state. But mental health is an extremely important side of competition. So I respect to Cynical for making that tough choice. I'm sure he wants to be competing, TJ.
Yeah, I mean, they've been through so much together. Technically 4 of the members of King's roster, Turbo, King, Cynical, Storm. I respect it. I know I've been there as a player. I mean, dang, I almost didn't want to play next year at all either. So I'm right there with them. I feel it. I do hope that King roster, maybe once the split is over and they're getting ready for LAN, maybe there's some changes there, because they have a lot of roster options between the 4 players. So I do hope that they'll do what they want to do for them and for the program. I hope there's a balance there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, King, look, they're going to give everything they got. I trust Wade's leadership. I do think that they are going to make it to top 12 still, even with all that. I don't think it'll be easy. I think it'll be a little scrappy, but that program is naturally better than many in this league.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know much about Echo, but Storm is finishing out the semester. He won't be able to play on LAN because that's after the semester is ended. He'll be back at home, so we'll be able to travel to it. But Turbo will be back for LAN. So it's going to be Wade, Echo, and Storm to finish out the rest of the playoffs, and then Turbo back in the lineup for Storm for LAN. So that's the tornado right now. and like even on LAN, that's a scary team with Wade's leadership. Turbo's been grinding. I know I see his tweets about playing RLCS quals, playing in weeklies with teams. Like Turbo's going to be on it on LAN. I know they're going to be prepared. They have time to prepare for LAN. I think it's about a month in between Grands and LAN, and they're probably going to have even more time outside of the SEL to grind. So that's plenty of time, TJ, for them to get set as a roster for LAN.
Yeah, I'm not worried. It's obviously a really rough loss, really rough situation, but I'm not worried for them. And again, they have time. And even if they go 0-2, yes, it sucks, but hey, the script writers are just cooking up for LAN, and they'll be okay.
Exactly. All right, moving on from King, though, I just want to talk about that briefly, because there are some results happening outside of the SEL that I want to talk about. And you mentioned UTK winning a LAN over the weekend. I gotta congratulate the boys for taking over the Queen City Clash. I'm gonna put it on the screen here so you can see their run through groups, went 3-0, 9-2 with Ohio State gray in there. UEH blue, I believe, was there.
Yes, that you're looking at them in Tennessee's group.
Okay, because I knew UAH white might be competing. They didn't make it though.
They did not.
Oh no, they're right there.
No.
They're in fourth. They finished fourth in Group A. But yeah, it's UAH blue. And then UTK down here in the bracket, beating UC Pink. All right, 4-1ing Drexel, and then 4-1ing Cincinnati. The guys are looking good right now, TJ.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me isn't even the fact that they won this land. It's the way that they went, and after losing to Cincinnati fairly rough in Kentucky, they turn around and they whip them at home in Cincinnati in their own club-hosted tournament. So this team, they're not disrespectful, but they play like it. And that's the UTK that I've been waiting on all year. I'm hard on this team. Me and Joe just talked about this like yesterday. I'm very hard on this team because I expect them that you win or you go home if you're this roster. And I think that we're finally starting to see the roster that at least I've envisioned them becoming.
And to talk about other SEL teams, UTK, very good. They get a lot of the spotlight in the SEL. But UAH Blue got a top 8 run. Kentucky, they lost to UC Pink in round 1 of that single elim bracket, so a bit of an upset there after finishing second in their group. But still solid results for a couple other SEL teams in a tough land. Like, you casted it, TJ. I know you're familiar with it. That was a fairly stacked land.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there wasn't really a very clear skill gap. I mean, UTK obviously made it look that way.
Yeah.
But those teams have all exchanged games against each other before. Also, shout out to Purdue for the run that they made. They're not an SEL school. I just want to shout them out because they were also at Bluegrass.
Great guys.
Yeah, they had a great run, and that just goes to show you the quality of that tournament. So, very impressive. Again, I throw a really fat asterisk above Kentucky because you lose Hud, somebody who I think is a game changer for them when he's playing right. So unfortunate. Fern did try his best, and they didn't look terrible, but they just couldn't get it done. But still, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially with that top 6 run in the SEL, which is the more important event of the two, obviously. I think they'll be happy. But another one as well that we had SEL teams competing in, and you and I casted a lot of, was Colleague Madness. Like, I love that Colleague, in search for, close to the top 64 teams in North American CRL, they went to like 5 SEL teams. We'll go through the bracket in a second. Let me put it up there. Because at the top, UTK Orange, shout out them again, beating Ohio State Scarlet, which is the A team, and then taking a game off of Northwood, the only team to take a game off of Northwood in that entire event. So good stuff, boys.
Yeah, no, Colleague knew what they were doing, picking from the best league, and they also got the 2 best casters in the entire nation to cover grand finals too. So they knew what they were doing there, and I'm glad because this, big shout out to the teams who competed in this, because what y'all were able to do for this league and for this community is massive. Also, do not sleep on Cumberland going to 5 with Illinois State.
Yep.
That is a massive, yes, you lose, but my lord, they have looked really good recently. And those were close games, too.
Yeah, Cumberland's dangerous right now. Beating FSU, almost beating Illinois State. This team really, really can make a run in the SEL. They can pull some more upsets, you better believe. And Skyline was telling me as well that he is going to be on the Cumberland campus. He normally plays virtually.
Ooh.
He's going to be with the Cumberland boys. So, I don't know. They tend to play well on land, and so being in the facility together, that could lead to an even greater buff for Cumberland. So I'm keeping an eye on them. But also shout out Kentucky, putting up a fight against Oklahoma Christian. Like look at that, scoring 9 goals in that one, and they gave up a lot more. But Oklahoma Christian's one of the top 10 teams in CRL right now. So Kentucky being that close with OCE, that's a good result for them.
I like to compare it to NA versus EU. We're getting there. We're a big region, but we're getting there. We're a little behind. But, I like the teams that are leading the way for us. And, yeah, very impressive games. And, yes, it's very hard for us to sit here and kind of be smiling about the losses. But it's hard not to with how great that our teams looked. And so this year there's been so much more going on than the fall. And so these teams, I think we're going to see them in arguably peak form. and I'm very excited to see kind of where that leads in terms of the SEL, where we get to see them at that LAN. I was almost just about to say the date, but no. But yeah, so we'll see. They'll look really good. I'm glad that they're leading the way, and they had a great performance.
And then Florida State taking a game off of Kansas, who look really good right now as well. Buds are in here. They got beat by LCU, who went on to the grand finals. That's not a bad loss at all for Buds. But, like, the fact that we're talking about all these SEL teams, I completely agree with you, TJ. Like, the SEL is on the up and up right now. And so I think Season 5 is going to be a big time for the league. I'm looking forward to it. We're making some waves at the top of the scene. And I want to talk as well. And I don't know if I've even told you about this, TJ, but next week's Monday Night Lights is going to feature, and this is Monday Night Lights 7, but next week's Monday Night Lights is going to be a special episode. It's going to feature 4 Great Lakes CRL teams and 4 SEL teams. We should have the top 4 in the SEL against close to the top 4 in Great Lakes CRL, playing 4 best-of-7 show matches on Monday Night Lights. That's still gonna get locked in. I still have some scheduling stuff to do this week, but that should be a big rivalry night between Great Lakes and the SEL to kind of. I mean, the Great Lakes has a lot of top 48 teams in their league, and the SEL is a little bit below that, but it still should be a great night, TJ. I don't know if you follow the Great Lakes a ton, but that's like Oakland, Western Michigan, Michigan State, all of them playing next week against the SEL boys.
Yeah, those are a lot of teams that get a lot of allegations of being in the weird midfield of CRL. So I'm very excited for them and us as a league to get a chance to prove ourselves. I will definitely try to be there. My schedule will be very free after this weekend, so yeah, I'm gonna try and be there.
All right, now we've previewed that, we got to preview tonight's Monday Night Lights as well, because of course UTK and UNCC are starting in 7 minutes on the Mr. Bepic stream. Big one to clinch top 6 in the SEL postseason. TJ, you've already predicted a 3-0, so I'm not going to ask you to predict it again. He expects UTK domination. I think it'll be a 3-1, but Coolio Plutio subscribed using his Prime earlier, so I think it'll be at least a 3-2 again. I don't know who will win it. We'll see what happens there. But we also have a new face on Monday Night Lights. It is San Marcos, Texas State. I think I'm saying that right. Texas State, San Marcos. They will be playing later tonight against Robert Morris, TJ, who we became big fans of at BBB last month. So I know you expect big things out of the RMU boys, right?
Oh, I love that team. Yeah, shout out to Sheep, Rad Moves, and Illuminous, too. Those guys are really cool, and they also just seem like a really close program. So I love to see them succeed. I would hope they start getting involved in some of these leagues that we were just mentioning. I want to see them in front of the spotlight more. But yeah, I mean, tonight would be a great opportunity to kick that off, especially since they've really broke out just a month ago. So yeah, I hope they win that for sure.
And here's just one more time the schedule tonight with that bar in the middle. But that should be a fun slate of matches. But that does mean we are coming to an end of State of the SEL Live. TJ, playoffs have been crazy so far. I got to get your final thoughts on the bracket to come. Do you really think that after the first couple of rounds of lowers that our top 8 teams are going to be pretty close to locked in?
I would hope so, but every time that this league has ever seemed to be consistent, it's been flipped on its head. And I will be completely honest, if UTK beats Bruton Parker, which remind me, is semis best of 5 or best of 7?
Oh, it's all best of 5 until grands.
Okay, so if UTK handles business against Bruton Parker, even if it does go to 5, I think that any of the top 6 could win this split. But if UTK can't handle them, I don't know who can.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. Good final thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. We got UNCC versus UTK coming up in 5 minutes. I'm gonna go to a break screen as I get all of that set up. Big thanks to TJ for joining me tonight. I got too many vowels going on in my head and constant. It's a crazy night in the Bepic mind. But I'm going to a break screen before UNCC versus UTK, so bear with us. as you got to wait just a little bit longer for more SEL action. But thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for Monday Night Lights, and I'll see you there.